Our movie begins with Sierra, the spoiled and pampered girl who never does anything by herself. She's so used to luxury that she even has someone hired specifically to wake her up over the phone. Sierra is extremely rich and lives in her father's hotel, where everything operates by remote control, and her room overlooks a breathtaking natural view. While she's talking to her very wealthy boyfriend on the phone, we learn that her father found her a job, but she doesn't want it. At that moment, her personal assistant walks in with the glam team her father hired to take care of her, carrying the most elegant and expensive clothes from the top brands in the world. When she finishes her call with her boyfriend, whose name is Tad, who, by the way, is just as spoiled as Sierra, we find out that his only job is being a famous influencer with tons of followers on social media. He advises Sierra to refuse the job her father offered and instead focus on growing her social media accounts. While he's talking to her, as soon as he notices a drop in engagement on his Instagram, he immediately hangs up to check what's wrong. On the other hand, we meet Jake, a hardworking young man with real values who has a respectable job. And I'm also trying to get a respectable job, so hit like and subscribe to the channel. Jake has an appointment with Sierra's very rich father, the owner of the hotel, whose name is Mr. Belmont. Mr. Belmont tells him, "If you want to talk to me, you'll have to keep up," then takes off walking fast, and Jake tries to follow him. But since Jake is a man of morals and principles, he decides to let the older man win so he wouldn't feel outdone. During their talk, Jake asks Mr. Belmont for financial support to save his small resort, which is on the verge of bankruptcy. He explains that young skiers start learning at his small resort, and once they become professionals, they move on to Mr. Belmont's big luxury resort. He also tells him that if the small resort goes bankrupt, it'll eventually affect the big fancy one too. But Mr. Belmont refuses and dismisses him. At that moment, the elegant Sierra comes downstairs to meet her boyfriend Tad. It's important to note that she's wearing a big hat and large sunglasses, something that'll make sense later. She accidentally bumps into Jake, and her extremely expensive clothes get dirty. Sierra gets very upset, but Jake apologizes and walks away. Later at lunch, Sierra introduces Tad to her father. Mr. Belmont asks him about his online business, and Sierra quickly corrects him, saying, "It's not a business, Dad. Tad is an influencer with tons of followers." It's clear that Mr. Belmont doesn't approve of the relationship, but he lets his daughter do what she wants because he loves her and doesn't want to upset her. When Jake returns to his small hotel, he meets his daughter and his mother-in-law, who are heading out to hang their wishes on the Christmas tree. Jake refuses to go with them because he used to do that with his late wife, and now he can't bear to visit the wishing tree without her. That's when we realize how deeply Jake loved his wife. May she rest in peace. He asks his daughter to make a wish for him along with hers. When his kind-hearted mother-in-law asks him how his meeting with the businessman Mr. Belmont went, he tells her that it was their last chance, but Mr. Belmont turned him down. That means they're facing bankruptcy. His mother-in-law tells him to be patient, pray, and have faith that everything will turn out fine. Meanwhile, at the luxurious Belmont Hotel, we see Mr. Belmont telling his daughter that he'll be traveling for a week and then coming back. As they talk, Sierra picks up a gift her father had bought for her mother, and he's surprised that she remembers it, considering her mother passed away when Sierra was only 5 years old. Then he hugs her and tells her, "Take care of yourself, sweetheart. I'll be gone for just a week and back before you know it." A little while later, Tad arrives in his fancy car, towing a snowmobile behind him. He takes Sierra with him to do a photo shoot up in the mountains. Sierra tells her assistant, "I don't want anyone disturbing me," then hops into the luxurious car and heads off with Tad. Meanwhile, Jake is working by himself because he can't afford to pay for labor. He takes 2 of his guests from his small hotel on a short trip. Tad and Sierra reach their destination, where they unload the snowmobile and ride together into the snow. They end up going into a dangerous area, and when they finally reach their spot, Tad starts taking pictures of Sierra. After a few shots, he suddenly pulls out a ring and proposes to her. But he's really just using the moment to film content and boost engagement on his social media. At the same time, Jake's daughter is hanging her wish on the Christmas tree, and the kind old man nearby does some sort of magical gesture. No one really knows what it means. Right then, a storm hits while Tad and Sierra are still on the mountain, and from this moment on, everything changes completely. The strong wind blows Sierra off the mountain, and Tad falls too, but Sierra keeps rolling down until her head hits a tree. During his trip, Jake finds what he thinks is a body lying in the snow, only to realize it's an unconscious young woman. He picks her up and takes her to the hospital. There, we learn that she has lost her memory and can't remember anything, not even her own name. At the same time, they couldn't find any form of identification on her to know who she really is. The officer tells Sierra, "We're in the middle of the Christmas holidays, so it's going to be hard to find your family. The only option is for you to stay here in the hospital until the holidays are over." At that point, Jake offers to take the girl, whose name he still doesn't know, to his hotel instead of letting her spend Christmas in the hospital. The doctor convinces her to go with him, explaining that it'll be better for her to engage in regular daily activities because that might help her memory come back. The girl, whom Jake doesn't recognize, agrees to go. And here's something worth noting. Jake doesn't realize she's Sierra, even though he met her before at her father's hotel, because back then, she was wearing that big hat and those oversized sunglasses that hid her face. She goes with Jake to his small hotel, and he gives her some used clothes to wear. For the first time ever, we see the spoiled Sierra wearing something cheap and secondhand. Meanwhile, Tad is lost in the snowy woods until he stumbles upon a small cabin. He enters and is startled by a strange old man inside. But after a few awkward laughs, the man, whose name is Ralph, invites Tad in for some coffee. Tad nearly faints when he realizes there are worms crawling on his face. The next morning, Sierra wakes up and opens the window, only to see people outside instead of the usual breathtaking view she's used to. After a moment, she tries to remember who she is, but fails. Then Jake's daughter walks in and introduces herself, saying, "You can't stay without a name forever. Pick one from the names of my teddy bears." She suggests a few names, and one of them is Sarah. Sierra likes it and chooses it for herself. Later, when she goes downstairs with Jake's daughter, she introduces herself, saying, "I'd like to introduce Sarah." Jake invites her to have breakfast with them, and she insists on making it herself. But when she tries, every attempt ends in failure. So Jake smiles and tells her, "Why don't you sit down next to the little one, and I'll finish up." Sierra, who used to have caviar for breakfast, had now become Sarah, the girl who actually enjoyed the simple food of the poor. Although honestly, my dear viewers, that poor people's food would still be considered fancy to us, something we'd only dream of having. Meanwhile, at the hotel, Sierra's assistant and the security guard were searching for her. When they entered her room and found the bed neatly made, the assistant told the guard she definitely didn't come back here. Sierra would never make her own bed. Then we shift to Tad, still lost in the snowy woods with that strange but decent man. The mysterious guy hands Tad a spear and tells him, "Hunt your food or you'll die." Back at Jake's place, he tells his mother-in-law, "I do all the cleaning myself because I can't afford a housekeeper's salary." At that moment, Sarah walks in and asks if she can do something routine, just like the doctor advised, since that might help her regain her memory. But Sarah fails at everything she tries. She fails at housekeeping, at organizing the ski equipment, at cleaning, and finally even at doing the laundry. She spills a whole container of detergent into the washing machine and just walks away. Later, when she enters Jake's daughter's room, she helps the little girl brush her hair. In that moment, Sarah suddenly remembers a saying her mother used to tell her when she was little. Both Sarah and Jake's daughter get excited because it's the first real memory she's recalled. But their happy moment is interrupted when Jake finds the laundry room in total chaos. He yells at Sarah, which upsets her deeply, and she leaves. She goes outside to the horse and says sadly, "I'm a failure at everything, but maybe I'll try gathering firewood." Jake, who's inside, overhears her. When she's out collecting the wood, she trips and falls, and Jake rushes over to help her. He suggests that she come with him and his daughter to the Christmas market celebration. Sarah agrees and joins them, and she's completely charmed by the place. She tells Jake, "I don't remember ever being here before." As they talk, Jake opens up to her, telling her that his wife passed away long ago and that they're now facing serious financial problems that might force them to sell the hotel, a place his late wife's father had gifted them as a wedding present. That hotel had been in her family for 3 generations. He also tells her that he's grown to love the place deeply and couldn't bear to lose it. A little later, Jake's daughter calls out to them, and a kind old man shows Sarah something that looks just like the gift Mr. Belmont once bought for her mother. Jake buys it for her, and then they all head to the town's Christmas celebration. The town's mayor gives a heartfelt speech, and then the fireworks begin. When they return to Jake's small resort, Jake talks to Sarah and tells her, "I felt like you remembered something when you saw that snow globe." She replies, "I remembered my mom. May she rest in peace. But it was just a faint memory." As they get up, Sarah tells Jake, "I'm sure we've never met before, because if I had ever met someone like you, I definitely would have remembered." Jake gives her a look filled with admiration. Sarah starts waking up early, making her bed on her own, and she even becomes good at preparing breakfast. It's clear she's now living a happy, peaceful life with Jake's family. One day, while they're skiing together, Sarah loses control, and Jake quickly rushes after her to save her life. Another day, Sarah walks into Jake's mother-in-law's office and finds her flipping through the memory book, which contains photos and notes from all the guests who've stayed at their hotel. It's obvious the older woman is sad about possibly losing the place to bankruptcy. She leaves the book with Sarah and says, "Put it back in the office when you're done." When Sarah returns it later, she finds a small Christmas ornament, a little bride meant to hang on the tree. Jake walks in and she asks, "Why didn't you hang this up?" He tells her, "My wife and I bought it together, but after she passed away, I couldn't bring myself to hang it again." Then he says he's heading out to the toy drive event, a charity celebration held for underprivileged families. Sarah is touched by how Jake helps others despite his own financial struggles and decides to go with him. At the event, a woman dressed in glowing Christmas lights approaches Sarah and tells her, "Jake is one of the kindest people around. Without his help, our charity would have closed long ago. He helps everyone and donates to countless organizations." When they return home, emotions are running high. Love and romance are in the air. Just as they're about to kiss, Jake, being the gentleman he is, pulls away and says, "Maybe we shouldn't. You might already be engaged or something." Sarah goes upstairs and falls asleep, admiring Jake's chivalry. The next morning, she tells Jake's mother-in-law that she has an idea to save their hotel from bankruptcy. Her idea is to reach out to all the past guests who stayed there and ask them to donate. When Jake hears about it, he immediately refuses because he's a proud man who would never accept charity. "I can take care of my wife, sure, but I won't have her taking care of me," he says. Sarah gets upset, snaps at him, and storms off. Jake stops her and starts to explain. "Look, it's just that," then gives up mid-sentence and says, "You know what? I'll go." Later, his mother-in-law goes to his office and tells him gently, "You're a good man, Jake. Don't shut your heart off. Love again after my daughter. Live your life, son, and I forgive you." Meanwhile, Sarah decides she's going to leave, but Jake's daughter convinces her to stay. And indeed, she stays. Jake finally hangs the little bride ornament on the Christmas tree, symbolizing that he's ready to move on with his life. They begin printing invitations for a Christmas Eve party, which means Jake has finally agreed to Sarah's idea. Out in the forest, Tad is still with the man who rescued him. The man tells Tad, "If you start a blog about survival skills, you'll be famous." At the same time, Mr. Belmont returns to his hotel, furious at his assistant for not knowing where his daughter Sierra is. He orders him to find her immediately and contact the police. The officer later finds a note Tad left in the car of the man who saved him, which tells us they'll soon be found. Sarah finds herself standing in front of the mirror, unsure of what to wear to the party, since all the clothes she has are secondhand. Her future mother-in-law walks in, smiling warmly, and gives her a beautiful dress as a gift. Meanwhile, at the police station, Mr. Belmont is sitting there when Tad suddenly walks in. Mr. Belmont immediately asks about his daughter, and Tad explains everything that happened, that they fell off the mountain and got separated. The officer overhears their conversation and tells them confidently, "I know where she is." Back at the small hotel, Sarah comes down the stairs wearing the dress, and Jake can't help but look at her with admiration. They start dancing together in the small space Jake had set up for the party, and the atmosphere is full of warmth and quiet happiness. Suddenly, the town's mayor walks in to attend the celebration and says, "I'm not here alone," before the rest of the guests who had stayed at Jake's hotel before enter. There are many of them. Jake and his family greet everyone, and the party begins. After some festivities and food, Jake takes the stage to speak and welcome his guests, but he looks shy and unsure of what to say. He's not used to asking for help. He's spent his whole life being the one helping others. One of the guests seems to understand and stands up saying, "I came here years ago with my family, and you taught my son to ski for free. Please accept this check from me." Then another couple steps forward saying, "We stayed here during our honeymoon when we couldn't afford it, and you took us in. Please let us help you now." Then the mayor himself donates, and soon all the guests join in, offering their support and donations. The joy on Sarah's, Jake's mother-in-law's, and his daughter's faces says it all. They're overjoyed and deeply moved. After that, Jake introduces Sarah to everyone, proudly calling her the woman who changed his life, and he begins to say some heartfelt words about her. Unfortunately, their beautiful moment is interrupted when her fiancé Tad and her father arrive. When they call her Sierra, she suddenly remembers her real name. Then Tad tells her his name and reminds her of the engagement ring, and everything comes flooding back, every memory. She looks at Jake and says, "Yes, I fell off the mountain, and you saved my life, Jake." Mr. Belmont thanks Jake deeply for rescuing his daughter, and Sierra Sierra thanks him as well before leaving with her father and Tad. Jake, his mother-in-law, his daughter, and honestly, me too, all feel heartbroken by what happened. The emotional song playing in the background almost made me cry. Sierra returns to her old life, but she can't stop thinking about all the moments she shared with Jake. Every smile, every beautiful memory, every detail that made her fall in love with him. When her personal assistant comes in, he's surprised to find that Sierra actually made her bed herself. When they offer her fancy clothes for the press conference her father arranged, she says, "No, I'll wear something simple today." He asks, "Would you like caviar for breakfast?" She replies, "No, I'll make my own breakfast." Then she goes down to the kitchen and cooks the same meal she once learned from Jake and his family, who, back at their house, are watching Sierra live on TV at the press conference. On stage, Sierra says, "I want to thank Jake and his family at the North Star Inn. They saved me and gave me a place to stay until I recovered. I highly recommend spending time at their beautiful resort." What Sierra did turned out to be massive publicity for Jake's small inn. After all, she's the daughter of one of the richest men in the world. The moment gets interrupted when Tad steps in, announcing that he'll be traveling with his fiancée, Sierra. Jake looks heartbroken, but his daughter encourages him, saying, "I never made a Christmas wish for myself. I wish that you'd find love and someone who cares about you the way you care about us. I thought my wish had come true when I saw you and Sierra together." That's all Jake needs to hear. He doesn't waste a second. Fired up, he rushes out to find Sierra before she leaves. At the hotel, Sierra is apologizing to her father about the job offer, telling him, "I'm going to work a real job, but not with you." Her father smiles and says, "Whatever makes you happy, sweetheart." Meanwhile, back at Jake's inn, his mother-in-law can barely keep up with the non-stop phone calls. They're all guests wanting to book rooms thanks to the publicity Sierra gave them. When Sierra meets Tad before their supposed trip, she tells him, "I'm sorry, Tad. I can't do this anymore. Here's your engagement ring. Find someone else to wear it." But Tad only cares about asking her if he can post about the breakup on his social media to boost his engagement. And instead of finding someone else, Tad ends up finding someone, a man, not a woman. Jake finally arrives to find Sierra hasn't left after all. She tells him, "I'm staying here. I'm not going anywhere." Then she asks, "What are you doing here, Jake?" He replies, "I just found out my entire inn is fully booked because of you." She smiles and says, "Well, don't you need someone to help you with all that work?" Jake agrees, and she adds, "My father also agreed to help fund and renovate your whole resort, not just the inn." Mr. Belmont arrives with Jake's daughter, and everyone gathers together, happy and united. The film ends on a warm, joyful note, the kind of happy ending I wish for all of you, my dear viewers.